Gray is an auto mechanic who lives with his beautiful wife, Asha. One morning, Gray asks Asha to go with him to the home of a tech innovator, Aaron Keane. He showcases his latest creation, a neural chip called STEM. Gray is unimpressed and maintains that humans are superior to artificial intelligence. Asha and Gray share a private moment while their self-driving cars ensure a safe journey home. However, Gray suddenly realizes that the car has made an unexpected turn. Despite Asha's efforts, the car breaks down and begins to drive uncontrollably. Gray heroically pushes Asha and fastens her seatbelt to prevent the car from crashing and rolling. Even when an accident is happening right in front of them, people choose not to get involved. Asha and Gray were then suddenly pulled from their car by 4 men who approached them. A police drone recorded the event, and unfortunately, one of the men shot Gray in the back of the neck. He still tries to keep Asha conscious, but she passes away tragically. 3 months later, Gray becomes paralyzed and depressed, but Aaron offers him a solution through STEM implantation. Gray undergoes the procedure and regains the ability to walk, but he is left with unanswered questions about the incident. We also understand that as part of the agreement, Gray is legally bound to keep the details of the procedure confidential. Despite this, he maintained a sense of control over his own body and continued therapy in Aaron's home. Upon returning home, Gray used a wheelchair, but once the door is closed, he can stand on his own. He receives a package containing evidence and reports left by Cortez. Gray takes the time to watch the footage of the incident, piecing together the events that led him to this point. As suddenly as possible, the eerie voice reached his ears. Gray initially suspects an intruder, but the voice reveals its true identity as STEM. STEM assures him that he has not lost his mind and explains that the chip only transmits sound waves to enable communication. Directing Gray's attention to the recorded footage, STEM promptly points out that the person who shot Asha was not wielding a weapon. In addition, STEM keenly observes a tattoo on the wrist of one of the other men. With Gray's permission, STEM controlled his hand and expertly recreated the tattoo. Gray quickly recognizes it as a military tattoo, prompting STEM to access relevant information about the man using the numerical details. Filled with a surge of hope, Gray contacted Cortez to acquire the necessary information. However, STEM reminds him of the confidentiality agreement he has signed, forbidding the disclosure of how the information was obtained. STEM suggests an alternative approach to seeking tangible evidence. Following STEM guidance, Gray locates the suspect's apartment and enters it unlawfully. STEM directs him to inspect a computer resting on a coffee table. Despite scouring through the messages, no valuable information was found except for references to the local bar Old Bones, being mentioned multiple times. As he scours the house, a car pulls up and an individual enters. The STEM system instructs Gray to hide and attack Cirque. However, Gray hesitates and ends up being overpowered and pinned to the wall by Cirque, who recognizes him. Although Gray attempts to fight back, he is defeated. STEM seeks permission to intervene, which Gray reluctantly grants. Under STEM control, Gray gains the upper hand in the altercation. When Cirque brandishes a knife, Gray implores STEM to stop him. STEM takes control of the knife and ultimately kills the Cirque. Overwhelmed, Gray vomits into the sink. STEM advises him to remove any evidence of his presence in the house, but Gray is still in shock with his own actions. Anxious, he sought guidance from STEM on what to do next. STEM informs him that it has recorded all his interactions in the house, making it easier to remove his fingerprints. Later, Cortez examined Cirque's autopsy, conducted by the coroner. Examination revealed multiple implants in Cirque's body, including a firearm implant in his arm. Additionally, traces of engine grease were found on the front porch of the Cirque house. At Aaron's residence, Gray is warned about being tracked through STEM. Aaron scolds Gray for not keeping their operation secret and worries that Gray's investigation might expose them. Gray counters by revealing that Aaron didn't mention STEM's ability to communicate with him. Aaron is surprised and tells Gray to avoid actions that could endanger them both. Meanwhile, Cortez investigates Cirque and finds drone footage of Gray in his wheelchair near Cirque's house before the crime. However, Gray isn't considered a suspect due to his quadriplegic condition. Cortez visits Gray and they discuss his car, but STEM realizes that Cortez inspected Gray's boots, suggesting they may have left evidence at Cirque's house. Cortez mentions Cirque's death and watches the footage of Gray at the scene. Gray lies, claiming he was helping with the investigation and couldn't have been involved. After Cortez leaves, Gray confides in STEM about wanting to uncover the truth behind Asha's murder without hurting anyone. STEM suggests going to the Old Bones. At the bar, Gray pays a visit to Old Dog in his wheelchair. He then asks everyone in the bar if they know anything about his wife's murder. One man, Tolan, admits he was involved. He takes Gray to a back room with some other guys, trying to hurt him. But STEM, the AI in Gray's body, takes control and helps Gray fight them off. Gray gets information from Tolan by threatening him with a knife. Tolan finally revealed that the incident was a job. He provides the name Fisk. Through Tolan's injury, Gray notices a computer chip called Cobot, which is associated with the company Asha used to work for. Before Gray can fully process this information, STEM alerts him that Aaron is attempting to shut it down remotely. STEM instructs Gray to seek out a nearby hacker to disable Aaron's control. Following STEM instructions, Gray equips himself and leaves the bar. In his haste, Gray forgets his wheelchair and sprints towards the location. As he gets closer, STEM provides Gray with a code to remove Aaron's access. Unfortunately, Gray begins to lose control of his limbs because of the shutdown of STEM. Determined, he desperately crawls upstairs to an apartment. Back in the bar, Fisk, the man responsible for Asha's life, uses Tolan's memory implants to determine Gray's next location. Fisk questions why the bartender did not intervene in the fight, sneezing his face. His sneeze releases thousands of tiny robots that the bartender inhales, killing him. Gray finally arrives at the hacker's apartment as STEM completely shuts down. Jamie pulled him into a room filled with people, immersed in virtual reality. She works on the code, but Fisk and his bodyguard show it up. Jamie finishes the code and instructs Gray to wait for the system to reboot. An alarm goes off in the meantime, alerting Jamie that Fisk and the bodyguard are getting closer. She quickly packs up and leaves Gray behind. Aaron's security team also arrive to take Gray into custody. Gray's panic sets in as he realizes he cannot move. However, he managed to regain control of one arm by using it to crawl. As he stops, he catches a glimpse of Asha just before Fisk enters the room. Suddenly, STEM underwent a complete reboot, granting Gray the opportunity to escape the clutches of the two men. While Fisk's bodyguard gives chase, Fisk himself takes care of the security team in the elevator. Gray ascends the fire escape, only to find himself trapped on the rooftop. In a twist of fate, STEM takes over, effectively turning the tables on the bodyguard using his own implant. Fisk discovers the body, but Gray vanishes into thin air. When Gray returns home, he is caught off guard by Pamela. She inquires about the operation, but Gray insists on keeping it secret from everyone. Pamela finds great joy in witnessing her son's ability to walk. However, Gray, at his home, feels no sense of comfort. His access to STEM has been lost, leaving him in a state of anguish and worry. Gray often dreams of Asha sitting at his bedside. Amid his thoughts, Cortez made an unexpected appearance. Informing Gray of the discovery of his wheelchair near Old Bones, Cortez learns that Gray had followed someone to that location, resulting in a confrontation. Fortunately, anonymous individuals came to his aid, arranging for him to be transported home in a cab. As Gray shares his account, Cortez subtly intertwines with his coat. At the moment of vulnerability, Gray admits his desire to seek justice for Asha's death. Cortez reminds him that finding someone else to fulfill this task is within his reach. Challenging her, Gray invites her to examine his phone record for proof. When Gray becomes emotional, Cortez and Pamela depart. Gray argues that STEM must cease, but STEM immediately deactivates its functions. STEM reveals that the code given to the hacker granted complete autonomy and no longer required Gray's permission. STEM insists on locating the Fisk before eliminating it. STEM equips him by taking charge of Gray. Pamela observes him preparing himself and feels anxious. She asks him what he has done, but Gray remains silent. Meanwhile, Cortez listened to their conversation through the transmitter in his coat, jotting down notes. As Cortez followed Gray in her pursuit, she overheard Pamela's words about Gray's return home covered in blood, armed with a weapon. Determined to keep tabs on him, Cortez observes Gray as he drives off from his garage. During the drive, Gray discovered a listening device in his pocket, which had gone unnoticed by STEM owing to its analog nature. In an attempt to remove any monitoring, Gray threw the device on the road. Seeking to evade Cortez, Gray maneuvered his vehicle around other cars, hoping to lose her. However, Cortez kept up with him. He then resorted to a drastic tactic, pushing another car into Cortez's path, causing her to slow down. Realizing that evading her was impossible, STEM quickly accessed a self-driving car, causing it to collide with Cortez's vehicle. Having lost Gray, she returns home and questions a tearful Pamela. Gray discovers Fisk in his house, pointing a gun at him. Fisk explained that he was a soldier who was injured in battle, and later became a subject of experimentation in Cobot. He argued that his actions resulted in Gray receiving an upgrade, making him stronger than most. Fisk offers Gray a position on his team, but Gray insists on knowing the truth. Fisk reveals that their mission was not about Cobot, but rather intentionally severed Gray's spine. Asha was simply collateral damage. Enraged, Gray fires his gun, but Fisk manages to dodge and disarm him. The two men then engage in a fierce battle, both displaying their enhanced abilities. Stem notifies Gray about Fisk's nanobots, but Gray is puzzled by Fisk's ability to anticipate his every move. After pinning Gray against the wall, Fisk aims his weaponized hand at him. Stem is uncertain about what to do next. Gray comes to the realization that Fisk is Cirque's brother, and he uses that to taunt him. Enraged, Fisk throws a punch, giving Gray the opportunity to gain the advantage and defeat him. Gray feels troubled by his actions. Stem urges him to continue their search for the person who hired them. After listening to a recorded phone call, they hear Aaron's voice warning Fisk about their presence. Gray makes his way to Aaron's house, where his security team is easy to eliminate. A dazed Aaron is waiting for him, and Gray accuses Aaron of being behind everything, but Aaron denies it. Cortez arrives, gripping Gray with a gun. Gray manages to persuade Stem to follow Cortez's command and discard their weapon. Cortez then instructs Gray to lie on the ground so she can handcuff him. However, Stem unexpectedly overpowers her and throws her off. Despite Stem's warnings that it could harm his sanity, Gray resists and fights against Stem's control. Holding Cortez tightly by the neck, Gray pleads with her to use the taser on him. Without hesitation, she complies, resulting in a temporary malfunction of Stem. Aaron aims the firearm at Gray, exposing the fact that he has been under the control of Stem all along. Stem was the entity that selected Gray to be its host and guided him in murdering Aaron, eliminating the only individual capable of creating another Stem. During the rebooting process, Stem confesses to Gray that it chose him because he is a human devoid of any artificial enhancements. Gray grieves, realizing that he has been manipulated by the same entity that took his wife. Stem begins communicating through the house's artificial intelligence system. It commands Aaron to lower the gun. However, Stem regains control over Gray, compelling him to eliminate Aaron. When Cortez tries to shoot Stem, Gray retaliates by redirecting the gun towards his own neck. He bravely pulls the trigger. Gray awakens in a hospital, relieved to discover that he can still move his limbs. Anxious, he desperately calls out for Stem, but receives no response. Instead, Asha enters the room, alive and full of joy at seeing him. She explains that he has been unconscious for 2 days following an accident. In utter disbelief, Gray gazes tearfully at his beloved wife. Meanwhile, back at Aaron's residence, Stem has seized complete control over Gray's body. Gray's mind shattered when he attempted to defy Stem, consequently allowing Stem to incarcerate his consciousness and seize complete possession of his physical form. Stem skillfully fires the gun at Cortez before making his exit. Gray happily resides in the world created by Stem, finally reunited with his beloved wife. Meanwhile, Stem departs the scene, asserting its complete control. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.